In this video, I'm going to show you how I make my mini wire wrapped paw print pendants. I make mine with 4 little beads around the top for the pads on the paw print and 1 bigger crystal heart that sits upside down underneath for the big pad there. I make them in a few different sizes, but today we're making this small one here. It has a little heart-shaped crystal which is 20 by 20 millimeters, which sits upside down. And then we've got 4 6mm amethyst beads as well. For our paw print wrap today, we're using 20 gauge dead soft silver wire. To start off this wrap, we need 2 8-inch lengths. So we just measure and cut those to length. Then we just start with one of our pieces of wire. Now we want to find the middle with our round nose pliers. You can measure it if you need to, but I just grab it by eye right in the center there and then start to bend it around the tip of my round nose pliers. We want to bring the wire around 2 full loops for a nice strong bail. Then while you're holding onto that bail nice and tight, give the wires 1 full twist underneath just to secure that bail in place. Now we're going to attach our second 8-inch piece of wire around the bottom of the bail there. So I place it right in the center there and then bring each wire across to the other side, pulling that loop nice and tight. I do want it a little bit more secure than that, so I just bring each tail across to the opposite side one more time. So that side over there, and this one over that side, and that kind of gives it a really nice little secure connection there. So you've got your 2 wires down here, which are the original piece, and then the new ones up the top here. Now our beads only go onto this original wire, so we start by just placing 1 on there. I'm working on this right hand side. So after you've put the bead on that original wire, you can then start to bring this other wire down and around that bead, sort of framing the middle part of it to make a little circle or pad for your paw print. So that wire comes around about 1.5 times so that it meets up on the other side here. Then you can bring it around the original wire, 1 full loop, and that just secures that wire around that first bead. Now we can pop another bead onto that original piece of wire. Then we can just bring this top piece of wire around your bead again, bringing it around about 1.5 times so that it ends up on the other side of the bead. Then you can wrap it around that original piece of wire, 1 full loop, to secure that bead and the framing in place. Starting to get some nice definition on those little toes or pads on our paw print. Now we can move on to the left hand side. So again, we're going to just pop a bead onto that original piece of wire, bringing that top piece of wire around the middle of the bead to create that circle framing. Bringing it around 1.5 times so that it finishes up on this side of the bead, and we can wrap it around 1 full loop around that original piece of wire. And then we can place our 4th and last bead onto this original piece of wire, and then bringing this top piece of wire around that last bead. Like all the others, you're going to bring it around 1.5 times to frame that little toe there. And then wrap it around 1 full loop onto that original piece of wire to secure it all in place. You want them all to be nice and tidy little circles that come around the center of the bead, and they're all about the same as well. Looks good if they're all in proportion and about the same size pads or toes for your paw print. This last one is being a little bit tricky for me to get around the center. but I'm just working with my wire to make sure I'm happy with it before I wrap it around that original piece of wire and secure it in place. Once you've got your beads on and secured and they're looking nice and even on each side, we can just wrap this tail around again. I do 2 loops on each side just to secure it nice and tight, and then cut that tail off on the inside, nice and short, so I can crimp it in nice and tight and the end is sitting on the inside. You should see that your paw print has a front and a back as well. The front is obviously the one which has the wire wrapped around each toe there. Now we're going to move on to attaching our little upside down heart to the bottom of our paw print. These 2 side wires don't need to be this long, so I'm just going to cut them off and make them a little bit more manageable, but leave at least an inch there so you can attach them. Now we can place our little heart-shaped crystal upside down with the point pointing up in the middle of your beads there, so that we can start to wrap our wires around and secure that heart-shaped crystal in place. Now I'm going to just cut some electrical tape that I'm going to use to secure my heart onto that first part of the wrap. I might actually just cut this piece in half as well. So you want to just hold your little crystal heart up there where it's going to sit in your wrap, holding it upside down with the point pointing up in between those 2 middle beads, and then you can tape it on the top half on the front and the back so it sits in place. My tails here are still a little bit long, so I'm going to just cut them a little bit shorter there. Then we're going to make 2 little oval shapes out of wire, one for the front and one for the back, to hold our little heart-shaped crystal in place. Again with our 20 gauge dead soft silver wire, and for this part here we need 2 4-inch lengths. Now both of these little 4-inch lengths of wire, we're going to gently form them into oval shapes. So I just work the wires just with my fingers and overlap the ends there and pull them into a nice small oval shape. You want them about as wide as the heart shape is. So you can place it on there just to compare the sizes, but they're going to sit just over the edge on each side. Moulding them both to be about that same size so that we can attach one on each side of our paw print and hold that little heart-shaped crystal in place. Once you're happy with your size of these ovals and you've got them both about the same size, then we are going to attach them onto our little wire wrap with electrical tape as well, so that we can secure them on each side. So just with another couple of pieces of electrical tape, placing one onto each side of the little heart there, both of them with the overlapped parts of wire at the bottom, and we leave both of the sides uncovered so that we're going to be able to wrap our wire around. So I just put the tape in the center there, and then we can still access each side to wrap it. So we're going to now work on one of the sides. We can bring these 2 tails on this side from the little oval shapes down, just so they're out of the way. Now we've got this original piece of wire that comes down off the beaded section. So our little straight piece of wire coming down, and we're going to gently work with it and bend it around so that we can bring it underneath both of those side wires. It can be a little bit fiddly, but just take your time and gently work with your wire, bending it around rather than pulling it, so that we can work it around and form some nice tight loops on the side here. The pieces of your wrap should be mostly held in place with the electrical tape, so you should be able to just gently kind of hold it all and work this wire around. I'm also making sure while I'm working that those wires from the ovals on the side here sit flat and next to each other. And then bringing this wire around 2 full loops, making sure that the loops are nice and tidy and flat, crimping them down nice and tight. I normally do 2 full wraps around here. You could do 3 if you wanted to, but once I've done my loops and I'm happy with them, then I just lift this tail up on the inside of your wrap and cut it off nice and short, so that you can crimp it down nice and tight and it sits on the inside of your wire wrap there. Use your pliers now just to make sure those loops are sitting nice and tight together, and that those underneath wires from the ovals are sitting nice and flat and next to each other. That first side should be nice and secure now. We can swap our wrap onto the opposite side, and we're going to do the same thing again on this side as well. We should have this one wire coming down off the beaded section, and then you've got your oval shaped wires as well, so we can bend a couple of those ends out of the way if needed. We just want to be able to access the side here so that we can gently bring our little tail piece here that comes down off the beaded section and bend it around and underneath both of those wires on the side of the oval shapes. Gently bending it around with your pliers and working with it so that you can form your 2 nice tidy tight loops on the side here to secure that wire wrap in place. Again, just making sure that those 2 wires underneath stay nice and flat and sit next to each other so it's all nice and tidy. You want this side to look exactly how it looks on the other side as well. So just keeping that in mind as you go and trying to have them the same shape and size. I've done 2 loops on the other side. I want to do 2 loops on this side as well. So once you've done those loops and you're happy with them, they're nice and tight, then you can pull your little tail up on the inside of your wrap there and cut that tail off nice and short. Crimp it in nice and tight so it sits on the inside of your wrap out of the way. Now we've secured both sides of our paw print there, we can move on to the bottom and securing this part so that our little heart-shaped crystal stays in place. So we've got our 2 ovals, one on each side, so just making sure those wires are still coming around on the same side. Then we're going to just bend one of these tails around. So I'm bending this wire that comes off the right hand side, starting from the end and bending it around onto itself. We can do the same on this side as well. This other right hand wire, bending from the end, starting to create a spiral, just bringing it around so that it sits in the center of our heart at the bottom there. That's going to help to hold your little heart in place. Once you've got that little spiral there and it's sitting in about the middle, then we can bring this other wire, so this wire here that comes off the left hand side, we're going to bring it behind the spiral, and then right in the middle here we're going to make a 90-degree bend and bend it straight downwards. Then the same on this side with this wire coming off the left hand side, bringing it behind the spiral and then bending it straight downwards. You want to make sure that your spirals are still sitting in the middle there. Now we bring these wires down and cross them over each other. Then we twist them together to form a nice strong connection. So equally twisting each wire around the other. So I do one twist and then another twist. Then we can cut the tails off nice and short. Now that nice strong little twist connection you've got, we're going to just spin it around underneath so there's no sharp points. The little twist connection sits in the groove of the heart really nicely if you can spin it around. Now you can just work with your pliers and all your wires, making sure they're all sitting nicely. Your little heart-shaped crystal should be held in place by a heap of different wires, so just check them all over, make sure there's no holes that are big enough that you could lose your crystal, and make sure that your crystal and beads are all secure in there and that your wire wrap is looking symmetrical. Taking your time now to check all your connections and make sure everything's nice and tight and sitting how you like it. Then you can gently start to remove your electrical tape. So just take it off one layer at a time, because remember there's another layer that's underneath the little oval pieces of wire there. Gently removing that as well. So underneath your electrical tape you should have something that looks a lot like this. Hopefully it looks like a paw print. Make any final tweaks that you want to, and also you're probably going to want to just turn that bail sideways as well, just twist it a little bit so that you can put a chain or some cording through it and the pendant sits nicely. So there's our mini wire wrapped paw print pendant.